Introducing the epic new Swift. Time to go swifting.
वॉचो ऐप पे देखो ओटीटी के दाम पे सारे ओटीटी शान से।
West Indies boss it in Bridgetown in the clash of the co-hosts. A combined bowling effort followed by a sensational 39-ball 82 from Shai Hope sees the West Indies beat USA by 9 wickets with 55 balls remaining, giving them a huge NRR boost in Super 8 Group 2. We look back on West Indies versus USA on Maruti Suzuki Arena. Presents ESPNcricinfo TimeOut, powered by Dish TV Watcho, in the company of Daren Ganga. Daren, thank you so much for your time. West Indies, after having lost to England, knew they needed not just a win, but a commanding one, and they got the job done.
Indeed, it was a dominant performance session. Psychologically, you can sense that the West Indies knew beforehand that based on their skill sets, their experience, they had the upper hand against this opposition. And they picked, in my estimation, their best given what that they have. The other thing was the proclamation by Hope, and that in itself just kind of and takes your mind back to previous matches and what in if the West Indies had gone in different directions in terms of their selections at the top of the innings with the options that they had, and more so with that bowling line against England in the absence of Obed McCoy in conditions that we were fit. He was very the West Indies on this occasion playing in Barbados, getting it right, and also utilize resources that were very familiar with the conditions at Kensington Oval. That, to me, was very critical in the dominance that we saw with bat and ball.
All right, Daren, we seem to be having a few technical difficulties with the connection. Could I please request you to just join the link back again?
Okay.
And we will continue our coverage in the meantime. It was absolutely commanding, as it was from West Indies. While we wait for Daren Ganga to join back, they, after having lost to England in the Super 8 Group 2 opener, got to bowl first. As Daren points out, there were a few team changes made. Obed McCoy coming back in after having not played the last game in place of Romario Shepherd, and they were also forced to bring in Shai Hope because Brandon King had to go out injured in that defeat to England, and Shai Hope has played the telling hand here. It's a game that began with the bowlers doing the job. They kept the US down to 128 after the Americans had got off to quite a solid start. They were 48 for 1 at the end of the power play. That is when the spinners, Akil Hussain had done his bit in the power play, but Gudakesh Moti came on. He got a wicket immediately, removing Nitish Kumar, and then Roston Chase, who we will surely hear from Daren Ganga in great detail about the impact he's had on this game. Roston Chase with a 3-for, which included the wickets of Aaron Jones and Harmeet Singh, who've been key contributors for the USA. So eventually, with Andre Russell also picking up 3 wickets by the end, the US folded up for 128. Now, the thing to bear in mind for the West Indies was also net run rates. The defeat to England. Remember, England had chased down 180 with 15 balls to spare, which meant coming into this game, the West Indies had a net run rate of minus 1.4. But as you look on the screen now, that has jumped to plus 1.8, thanks to them gunning down 130 in just 10.5 overs. And now we do have Daren Ganga back with us. Daren, thank you so much. The setup is done, and I was just informing our viewers about both those changes and how those changes have played such a big role in this victory for the West Indies. Let's start with Shai Hope. You set the conversation up because the openers had not been having the best of times for the West Indies through this campaign. Brandon King, unfortunate with his injury, but Johnson Charles actually looked like he was continuing to struggle even today, which just makes Shai Hope's innings all that more impressive, given that net run rate was always going to be on West Indian minds.
Indeed, I think, again, I would say it's a real proclamation by Shai Hope. That in itself shows that the West Indies probably didn't make the right decisions in previous matches with using that available option. Of course, every team would have had a course of action in the build-up to this World Cup. So Darren Sammy, Rugman Powell started with Brandon King and Johnson Charles and expected a lot from them. They persisted, However, without Shehu playing, he only played in that game against Afghanistan, where he batted at number 3. But the entire Caribbean and majority of the world, they know of his caliber and capability as a batter. He's dominated in white ball cricket in the ODI format. He's played test match cricket. He's got back-to-back hundreds in that test match against England. So there's no doubt about his talent and ability. And coming off playing in the IPL for the Delhi Capitals, one would have felt that he would have been given priority at the top of the order or in that batting lineup to start for the West Indies. It was not the case, but the way things unfolded, he eventually had his opportunity. And again, it reinforces the point that familiarity with conditions and players knowing and having past records at venues, it's high priority and it adds immense value in increasing the probability of those said players performing at venues across the Caribbean. And Shehu did exactly that in front of his home crowd.
What would stand out to a majority of viewers from outside of the Caribbean is that Shehu has often been typified as more of an anchor type batter, although we saw glimpses, at least the Indian audiences would have seen glimpses of his aggressive side when he featured for the Delhi Capitals this IPL. But for a player who's conventionally known to be a safer player, to go and play this role just shows you how complete a batter he is.
Look, he's classified like a classical player, very similar to what people think about Virat Kohli, what people think about Baba Azam, players who play conventionally, who are not so inventive in the manner in which they go about scoring runs. But if you follow his career in the last 12 to 18 months, he made a concerted effort to work on his T20 game. He played in the PSL. Then he earned the opportunity to play in the IPL on the back of having a solid Caribbean Premier League, where he scored the most runs, led the Ghana Amazon Warriors to the title for the first time in the CPL's history. And you could see that transformation in his batting, the way he was positive, his ability to hit sixes, his entire mindset when it comes to batting was very different to when he just started his international career. So there was no doubt that Shehu was a viable option for the West Indies at the top of the order. The argument and pros and cons had to do with the other options that were sort of options traditionally used by the West Indies in T20 internationals. So I'm just happy that he had his second opportunity in this World Cup. It will create a few more problems for Darren Sammy going forward because now he will have to think about Johnson Charles and his returns and whether or not blooding somebody like a Kyle Mayers or like a Shimron Hetmeyer might sort of put the West Indies in better stead for going into a semi-final, going into a possible final. But the first hurdle will be against South Africa. But it's good headaches to have. With players scoring runs and performing, competition is always healthy. But Shehu, no doubt, has transformed his game, is a T20 player, and can play different roles, batting at the top of the order and also playing middle of the innings, consolidating if required, and then finishing at the end.
Right. Well done to Shehu. 82 not out of 39. Player of the match for his highest score in T20 as hadn't ever scored more than 55 in 27 previous innings. But the fact that West Indies had a chase which could be taken down in, say, less than 12 overs was down to a solid bowling effort. And Daren, it didn't look as straightforward. I mean, USA at 48 for 1 in 6 overs, you would have thought they'll finish with a lot more than 130 potentially. But that's when first Gudakesh Moti getting Nitish Kumar and then enter Roston Chase, and that's where the course of that innings completely changed.
Look, I say it again. When you look at the selection made for this matchup against the USA, to me,
seem to be having some technical issues again with Daren. We'll just wait on that to be solved. But just as we were beginning to head into the West Indian bowling effort, USA on the back of a solid power play. They were 48 for 1 with Andreas House, who's been so impressive for them, played that sensational 80 not out in their valiant chase against South Africa. He'd gotten off to a start again, 29 of 16 from him after having lost Stephen Taylor early on. And that's when Roston Chase had actually already started making his mark in the game, because in the first over, in the second over, sorry, with Andre Russell bowling, Stephen Taylor hit one which saw Chase with a low diving grab at backward point. But from there, Andreas Gauss and Nitish Kumar, who batted at number 3, had stitched a good partnership. They had taken USA to 48 for 1. Gauss in particular, 29 of 16, looked set for what would have been his third or fourth knock of note already. Gauss, remember, is the same player who made a half-century in the opening night win against Canada for the USA, had runs against Pakistan, and then, of course, that brilliant knock against South Africa. So from that point is where the West Indian spinners took over. Gudakesh Moti first removing Nitish Kumar, and that was followed by Roston Chase, whose 4 overs, 3 for 19, give him his career best T20I figures. It's a short sample. He's only played about 17 or 18 games and bowled in 14 of them before this. But 3 for 19 for him coming through the middle overs. And as Daren was beginning to point out, and I'm sure he'll continue once he's back, brought in more specifically with West Indies knowing West Indies deciding to target the US with their spinners. And now let my analysis of this pause for a bit, because Daren Ganga will make much more sense of Roston Chase and just how good he was.
Yeah, again, like I said before, this is West Indies' best bowling lineup given the squad that they have. So I expect that this will be the formula going forward. Roston Chase is a utility type player. He's a turner of the cricket ball. He is a smart, wily customer when it comes to bowling. Given the fact that we have bias outfields where one side is larger than the other and there is a relatively strong wind blowing across venues, he can adapt and bowl to suit the conditions, which is very, very critical in a bowling lineup and a bowler being successful here in the Caribbean. So there's no surprise in the fact that he was able to prize that important wicket of Aaron Jones first and then found himself on a hat-trick. And his use coming at the right time, he started bowling in the 10th over, and he had a ball that was already old, so he was getting some purchase from the surface. He clearly understands the conditions at Kensington Oval, his home venue. He knew of that northeasterly wind that blows across the ground, and it was ideal for him to time the innings, impact it with his 3 wickets, and he continues to show his value as an all-rounder in this side. Again, that is only one aspect of what he brings to the table. He's also that bit of insurance for this West Indies batting lineup. Should they lose 2 or 3 wickets very early in an innings, he is that type of player that can consolidate, build a partnership, and then lay the platform for the power hitters in this West Indies team to come.
Right. Quick thoughts on the USA batting, Daren. They've been so impressive over the course of the tournament, and in particular in their last outing against South Africa. Where do you think they faltered?
Well, Kumar and House, these two guys had the ideal opportunity to build upon the power play. They had a partnership during that first phase. As you mentioned, they finished on 48 for 1, and it was that middle phase of the innings where they struggled. They weren't able to get runs fluently. I just felt that they were a little too ultra-attacking in their approach.
The difficulties continue. We will... that's all right. We look past that, and Daren Ganga seems to be gone, but he has pretty much covered the game, and we will pretty much leave it there. USA eventually couldn't get past those strikes in the middle overs and never really recovered, and that's why they finished on 128. And then West Indies were able to chase it down in 11 overs. That gives West Indies their first points in Super 8 Group 2. More vitally, gives them a net run rate boost, which means that they will go into their last game against South Africa in Antigua, knowing that as long as they win, it doesn't matter what else happens in the group. Win there in Antigua and West Indies will be in the semi-finals. Win one more game and then they could be back here in Bridgetown, Barbados to be in the final, which they are so dearly waiting to do as they vie for a 3rd Men's T20 World Cup crown. We'll leave it here. Thank you so much for your company. The ESPNcricinfo mobile app will have you covered with all the finer details from the game and the thoughts and analysis from both camps after West Indies' win over the USA. Be sure to join us back, India versus Bangladesh this evening in Antigua.